And so children were a lot more willing to to be a part of that tradition too, and they were proud of it. And then they were proud to see their family business actually sponsoring the football team. And you may have one black family business sponsoring the uniforms. You may have another black family business sponsoring the food. You may have another one sponsoring, the trips to play the games and whatnot. But that was a pride that you could see. That was a pride that could be felt in the stands, by people seeing the local grocery store. And I'm kind of losing my voice, so you guys have to bear with me. But you saw this, excuse me, you saw this in towns and even in major cities. And then there was, this big push for integration. And so black businesses, they did try. They tried very hard to hang in there. But as the so-called integration occurred, they saw a lot of the blacks that were able to pay, for the different goods and services move out of the community. And you were left with a lot of blacks in the community that may have been low income or no income, unemployed. And you saw a bunch of black fathers now reversing the trend where men were taught to stick with their families and stay with your family and raise your children. You now saw a trend of black males saying, well, she can do better on public assistance without me. And so there was this huge excuse to just walk away from your children. And so as those men walked away from their children, you saw black mothers having to struggle to pay for groceries and different things, having to work most of the day, so they weren't coming into the stores except on their days off. And, the children had less money to come and buy, stuff at the grocery store, at the candy store, or whatnot. You also saw the boom of cars in the black community. And so now people didn't have to shop at the local black business where, it was in walking distance. Now they could drive to the major grocery store or the major general store where they could get things maybe for a better price from whites than they were able to get from blacks. Before integration, blacks were willing to pay a little bit more at the black store because they knew that they were part of something. They were part of the black community, which was a black business that was part of the neighborhood, a part of the community. And so as more different trends started hitting on black businesses, well, you saw black businesses having to make the decision. Do I stay in the neighborhood and maybe, end up going bankrupt? Or do I try to move on to greener pastures and try to go where the money is going, go where the black people with money are moving to? And so you saw black businesses moving to the same, or at least trying to move to the same white areas that black people were moving to. The problem is that just as black people had a very difficult time getting into white neighborhoods, black businesses had almost an impossible time getting into black neighborhoods. So, getting into white neighborhoods, I'm sorry. So, while you may have, in this white neighborhood, 1, 2, or even 5 black families, you still were faced as a black business with the same situation. Whites were patronizing white businesses, and these black families were patronizing white businesses. So black businesses really didn't have much of a chance in, first of all, trying to get into a white neighborhood. You were given as hard a time as the black families trying to get in. Two, you were charged an arm and a leg in order to discourage you, just like the black families were charged an arm and a leg for houses. And so you were having to pay more for the rental space. You were having to pay more for insurance. You're having to pay all these huge overhead costs. And then you were dependent on whites coming into the business and patronizing you, which they weren't doing. So the few black businesses that actually attempted it ended up going belly under and moving to other things because they were kind of between a rock and a hard place. Some of them came back to the black community and just decided to run a minimal business in order to keep overhead at the same level as the money that was coming in. So you saw them getting less stock. You saw black businesses doing less upkeep, less maintenance, less restoring. And you saw them actually doing, in a lot of cases, less service. And black communities started getting used to those black businesses being depressed and going downhill as far as service and whatnot. So over the years, the one feeding off of the other's depression, it just became a situation where now nobody expected the black businesses to be up to standard. And the black business owners didn't expect the people coming into the business to have much money. And between the two of those expectations, each got exactly what they expected. They got a spiraling situation where they actually became somewhat resentful of each other as black people. And, of course, what white businesses did was move in and actually take advantage of that situation. And so you had, while European whites, the British American whites tended to stay in their white areas, their British American white areas, you had other people, other whites that came in and during the different wars were basically invited to come into the country, but they were geared and encouraged and steered toward not competing with white businesses, but going down and competing with black businesses. And so they were steered toward areas where they would be in direct competition with black people. So going back to the times that in the generations that are alive now, you had first the Korean, Vietnam War, and the Korean War had already brought in a lot of Korean people, but the generations now really didn't understand how all that came about until the Vietnam War, which for black people, they see all of the white Asian people as the same. But the Korean people were already here, and then the Vietnamese people started coming. And so you saw this kind of switch off between the two. One had already made a lot of money in the black communities and was now going out to various areas. And then, you know, they had the Vietnamese people come in, and they were opening up restaurants and hair places and beauty salons, you know, beauty supplies. And nail shops and different things